I had the opportunity to look at the hearings of Dr. Anthony Fauci when he was being pulled in front of Republicans. The F bomb by Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno, all of it, not to find the truth about what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, not to find somebody responsible for it, but all in a show trial for Donald Trump. And we all know why they did this. To help me illustrate that, I'm going to read you another article from John Pavlovitz. I reference his work all the time because he makes a whole lot of sense and he brings what's happening in this country into clear perspective. As he does in this article, The Mortal Sin of Anthony Fauci. A reader outside the United States messaged me today and asked me to explain to him the right's incessant attack on Dr. Anthony Fauci. From his vantage point, some thousands of miles away, he couldn't understand what was behind his seemingly daily campaigns calling for his head, blaming him for the pandemic, and inventing all manner of supposed smoking gun evidence that within a few hours always proves to be nothing but manufactured myths and curated conspiracy theories that soon dissolve in the ranking light of the smallest bit of scrutiny. For those not here on the ground in the States, it's probably difficult to comprehend how we ended up here, how tens of millions of Americans and the lion's share of one of its political parties have found a mortal enemy in one of its most respected public health experts. But it's actually quite simple. Dr. Anthony Fauci has sinned against their God. And their God, obviously, is Donald John Trump. He had the audacity to oppose their unhinged orange MAGA Messiah. And that is something that religious zealots cannot tolerate. The moment in February of 2020, when during another ego-stroking South Carolina rally, Donald Trump labeled the coronavirus as, and I quote, the Democrats' new hoax, unquote. The moment he said that, he set conservatives down a deadly path that would take all the way to this very moment, a war on facts and truth in a time where millions of lives were hanging in the balance. As the case numbers rose exponentially and the deaths began to pile up, Trump did all that he was ever capable of or willing to do. He spoke recklessly. He stroked conspiratorial nonsense. He passed blame to China and to the media and to the Democrats, and he made up whatever asinine refuse that came into his head in the moment, without considering the human toll. And as the months went by and the body count grew, his base and his party did what monopolic cult members do. They blindly follow their leader into the moral abyss, and they fell before him, and they looked for enemies to unleash their misguided wrath upon him. And that's why they hate Anthony Fauci, because in press conferences and interviews, he became the exhausted conscience of good people. He visibly showed his exasperation. He attempted to inject common sense into the terrifying circus of the president's continual stream of verbal diarrhea and disinformation. And he did what he has done for decades. He tried to protect people because that is what he does, what he's qualified to do. Anthony Fauci has faithfully served the United States under 7 presidents of both parties. Aligning some ridiculous partisan narrative shows just how invested Trump's sycophant followers are, and how little rational thought or substantive evidence that are required to form an opinion. The moment anyone, whether a decorated retired general or a former party member or a respected journalist, displays the slightest deviation from their wild-haired deity, they are dead to them. Persona non grata, hopelessly condemned sinner. Anthony Fauci is everything Donald Trump, his perpetual uninformed base, and socio-authentic GOP politicians like Stephen Miller, Rand Paul, and Mike Johnson despise. He's intelligent, educated, principled, and compassionate. And most of all, he dared to commit one of the most mortal sins for which there can never be any forgiveness from the MAGA. He stood in the face of their beloved, vinaigrette, spray-tanned savior, and he spoke the truth that could actually help us get through the greatest public health crisis we have ever faced. When given the choice between saving lives and keeping faith in almighty Trump, the choice was easy. That's why so many Trumpers buried someone they loved during the pandemic, and why they're still blindly worshiping their monstrous Messiah and blaming the helpers. Over 500,000 people died on Donald Trump's watch. Half a decade later, he's deluded disciples in Congress and in our police departments and in our schools and in the media and in our neighborhoods and in our churches are still mocking masks, opposing vaccines, perpetuating conspiracies, and vilifying people with the expertise and the competency because those things are antithetical to the object of the cultic fervor. Dr. Anthony Fauci sinned against Donald Trump by telling the truth. And that's something that their feared adult congregation of ignorant acolytes will simply never allow. Thank you, John Pavlovitz. I'm just going to say this. To you in the MAGA who are still angry at Fauci, get the hell over it. You buried someone you loved during the pandemic. You may have been infected by the COVID virus yourself. And still you're trying to find someone else to blame? Let's get some things straight right now. Donald Trump was the president at that time. Unfortunately, the president at that time. The blame is on him. He didn't get us ready for the pandemic. He didn't even discuss with the CDC and health officials in this country of the possibility that pandemic may have hit this nation. And when it hit this nation, he didn't do anything about it. And when more and more cases were actually being discovered in this country, he still didn't do anything about it. Matter of fact, case in point, President Obama left him an outbreak response plan after the possibility of the Ebola virus coming to this country. Donald Trump refused to follow that plan because it had a black president's name on it. He fired the people who were supposed to get ready for a pandemic. All those deaths are on his hands, not Anthony Fauci's. He was trying to do his job. And you vilify him because he sinned against Trump. He went against the almighty golden God, Trump. If it were up to me right now, I would be in Washington, D.C., ready to put cuffs on him and charge him for over 500,000 counts of murder, or at the very least, involuntary manslaughter. The game is over. In one way or another, Trump, you're going to pay for those deaths. Add that to the list of things you're going to get charged with the moment you walk out of the White House, which should have happened the first time, but I digress. But as for you in the MAGA and you idiots in the GOP who make asses of yourself trying to question Fauci, especially you, Bernie Moreno, Senator from Ohio, instead of trying to prove that Anthony Fauci is some kind of criminal, you and the rest of the GOP proved yourselves nothing more than whores. Straight up bought bitches for Donald Trump. And we will not forget that. Oh no, the bill is coming due in November. Bank on it. CTP, no truth, God bless. Peace to the left, justice to the right. Don't forget to subscribe and share my videos.